One of the things that people are getting kind of crazy about is that they're worried students won't learn how to write well because of LLMs, that students will just go to large language models, they'll go to ChatGPT or Claude, and they'll have it do the writing for them. And this is obviously a really bad thing. But my guest actually thinks that's not quite right. My guest is Luciano Floridi. He is the John K. Castle Professor in the Practice of Cognitive Science and the founding director of the Digital Ethics Center at Yale University. He's been doing philosophy of technology for, probably longer than I've been a philosopher at all. He thinks that we're actually over-exaggerating or putting too much weight on the idea that people actually engage in the writing. Instead, he invites us to think about the distinction between owning the writing and being responsible for the writing. So one way to think about this is there are artists who direct people how to create the thing that they want created, but they're not actually touching, let's say, the paint or the physical structures or the steel or whatever it is. He also talks about architects who aren't actually building the thing. He talks about chefs, as he put it. A great chef doesn't cook that much. And he thinks that perhaps that we should think about writing in that kind of way. He also suggests that perhaps we should think about being a really excellent writer. He doesn't want to do away with writing, but for those people who really value novel, interesting, effective writing, you might think that what you should do is treat it like a musical instrument. We don't all play the piano or the violin, etc. But if you really want to be an excellent writer, go do that. That's a further artistic endeavor that one can engage in. Now, one of the things that you might be thinking about is, doesn't this undermine our ability to think? A lot of people say, well, and I think I've said this, writing is thinking, or at least writing is a way of thinking. And so don't we need to treasure that? And his short answer is, writing is kind of a recent phenomenon, especially if it's someone writing their own stuff. There were always scribes to write things down. A lot of people engaged in thought without writing. The go-to example that he mentions is Socrates himself. And so why do we think that in order to think well, that we need to write well? This leaves open a question. What should we be doing in places like schools and universities? What does teaching look like and what does grading look like if we're not looking at essays in the humanities? And the short answer is he thinks that we ought to be engaging in far more dialogue, that professors and other students should engage in more dialogue, oral exams, instead of having to have the essay, which he thinks is kind of a relatively recent artifact that maybe we just don't need it anymore. So as you can hear, it's a fascinating conversation, really presses on some fairly widespread assumptions about the importance of writing, and it's being done no less by a professor of digital ethics at Yale University. Okay, so that's what this episode is about. I have a book coming out called The Ethical Nightmare Challenge. That's coming out in April. You can go to readblackman.substack.com if you want to sign up for notifications about when it launches, et cetera, et cetera. You can email me at em@readblackman.com if you've got questions or thoughts or suggestions about this podcast. And I don't know, I think that's it. Let's go talk to Luciano. So Luciano, if I have you right, first of all, Luciano, right? I'm saying it right? I don't have an Italian accent, but
that's very good.
All right, great. Luciano, the view is something like there's something about authorship. We're losing out on authorship the more that we use generative AI or large language models in particular, and you're concerned about the loss of authorship, whatever that means, and the cultural impacts of that. So do I have the basic thesis right?
Yeah, that you're probably right. If there's something that this new AI that we have is transformed, it's precisely this idea that we were the unique sources of text, videos, photographs, music. We had, of course, automation of production of something in the past, but the quality, the ease, the cost, which is decreasing by the day.
Yeah.
So people start thinking, okay, is there still something like an author in the future? Are we going to see AI taking over even the writing of novels, of research articles, of pamphlet, and little books that tell you what the Colosseum is? So
Yeah.
I think that there's a very interesting transformation. I think it's deeper than many other things we hear when it comes to AI, because and we can talk about this for longer. But if you think of it, I mean, we also live in cultures that essentially, culturally speaking, grounded on the text. It could be Quran, the Bible, the New Testament for Christians as well, and the word, the logos, the expression of thoughts in writing has had a huge impact for millennia in our culture. Transforming that touches the DNA of who we are and what our culture looks like.
Okay, so let me take. So, okay. I take the claim then is that the written word has done so much to shape culture and touches us in so many different ways, whether it's books, literature, art, film, theater. I like your example of the pamphlets that you get in a museum. It's pervasive, and so if we lose that, that looks like a big cultural sacrifice. That seems crazy. So why though think that we would lose it? Why not just think it's going to get done by something else, or at least it'll get done by us in concert with something else, a large language model or something like that? Why? I don't see the pervasive. I don't think people are going to read less. I don't think the written word's going to show up less in books, film, theater, museum, pamphlets, etc. The fact that it's co-authored, if you like, and sometimes solo authored by an AI, why should, I mean, aside from the fact that the writing might be really shitty, why should I really be worried about it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't think we should be too much.
Oh,
Second,
okay.
there's a lot of writing that goes on that is now how many times have we said, oh, I wish a computer could do this for me? I mean, form
Sure.
the tax return. I mean, you really want to write that all that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the boring bureaucracy, the form, all that. No, and this massive amount. I mean, just imagine all the reports by companies. We live in a university context where, of course, more and more paper, more words. So all that automated, where I just have a bit of a look at it. I can approve, disapprove, change this and that, and it's done. Well, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. So I think some people, I'm not one of those, but I think some people feel that, for example, and there are several other issues. For example, we are here at conference and so on, or we think by writing. If we lose writing,
Yeah.
then we're no longer thinking. No, my reply is that Socrates never wrote a single line. So surely he was able to think. So it's a recent cultural acquisition
Oh, that's
that
interesting. Yeah.
writing and thinking come as two sides of the same coin. For a
Yeah.
long time, for example, intellectuals, including philosophers, could read, but they did not write because writing was supposed to be a mechanical something that your scribe would do for you. You would dictate your letters, but you wouldn't
Yeah.
be the person who actually took the pencil, the paper, and put down your thoughts. So I think we need to be a little bit cautious on this. Oh, writing is everything. We lose that, we lose our humanity. I think, as you said, sometimes some of the stuff will be rubbish, and we will say it.
Sure.
The card I'm going to get from you, written by AI, automatically, well, will feel a little bit less personal, and I'd rather have something non-grammatical from a friend than the perfectly sort of design and polish piece of nothing automatically generated because someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot of interesting transformations here.
I don't know what to do with this point except just to sort of agree. But yes, lots of people say, especially the philosophers, say, no, writing is thinking. To lose out on writing is to lose out on thinking. And so it's really nice to hear push. I like pushback on anything, but I like this sort of like, just calm yourself. Millennia of people not writing, but clearly doing a lot of thinking. Take it easy. There's lots of ways to engage in thought, deep thought, interesting, rigorous thought. Writing is not. It might be a contributing factor in some cases, but it's far from a necessary condition. So this is just me registering that I like that point.
I think so. There's a beautiful story that when Bertrand Russell at some point, he was a pacifist, so he ends up in prison. Of course, he's Bertrand Russell, Lord Russell. So obviously he has
Yeah,
to
sure.
go to prison. He's allowed a lot of extra facilities and so on. But one thing that he doesn't have is the luxury of having endless amount of paper and so on. So he tells us that when he writes his introduction to mathematical philosophy, which is basically a textbook for undergraduates at Oxford, has been for ever. It's a class. It's a beautifully written text. He tells us that he goes to these allowed walks in prison, and he think about the sentence until that sentence is perfectly phrased and formed in his mind, and then he puts it down. Well, I wonder whether we could just not learn a couple of things here. The
Yeah.
point is, in terms of writing and how that changes, is writing all those prompts is a different art. You have your LLM, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever you use, and you have to write
Yeah.
response that is almost like programming. You have to be very clear, very specific. Otherwise, God knows what they're going to give you. And that's
Yeah.
art that we're going to master. Of course, it's a different kind of writing, but it's still no that clarity of I need this, I need that, I don't need such and such. Be clear on this, then no, deliver X. So all that, for example, is also mental training. So I want to be much more open-minded about what is writing business looks like. Certainly, your average sort of airport novel that you cannot put down, which is normally badly written, but you cannot put
Yeah.
and I won't name
Yeah.
anybody, but I mean, I speak as a sinner, okay? Well, that,
Dan Brown. Dan. I'll say
there
Dan
you go.
Brown.
Okay, you said it's with, I mean, and honestly, as an Italian, the Italian bits are so ungrammatical. I mean, not the saying that, like, amazing. Anyway, so that I cannot put it down, and I know it's an artifact that there's a recipe. Someone, no,
Yeah.
just turned the
Yeah.
handle good old days and produce that massively, as most of these bestsellers are. So in that sense, I'm not sure we're losing anything by sort of delegating to an AI and say, you know what, I want to have a different ending here. That's another story. So like we can also personalize the writing.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I mean, I have to say that I've mostly taken it to be obvious that we know that people should learn how to be decent or good writers and that writing helps with thinking. But the truth is, I mean, as we both know painfully from reading student papers, people are really, really bad at writing. It's not, and while it's true that for a lot of professors, especially in the humanities, writing is their way of thinking, for a lot of people, it's probably an impediment. They spend so much time trying to think about how do I craft the essay that they spend less time thinking about the contents of the arguments with which they're meant to engage. And so yeah, it's sort of like a bias of the humanities professor to say, no, no, we need to preserve the importance of writing. But I don't
Right.
know, people are not very good. I mean, we need to be good at communicating. I think that's probably true. The better we are communicating our thoughts, ideas, arguments, and assessing those things is going to help in all walks of life, from highfalutin philosophy to sales calls, right, where you have to get your prospect to understand what your product does and why it's so great or whatever. I'm just trying to think of everything from the esoteric to the relatively mundane. So we need communication skills and to talk to the AI, as you said, but it's not obvious that writing skills need to be prioritized in the way that we've relatively recently historically done so, as you pointed out.
I agree. I think that something went a little bit too far because
Okay, good,
we
yeah.
transformed this idea of assessing someone by assessing their writing. Now we assess their CV, we assess their letter for a job when they submitted, we assess their essays. It's constant written word, as if there were evidence of clarity of mind, the thinking. Now, we also don't know what lies behind. I mean, maybe the student or the friend or the colleague or the person who applies has had that written by someone else. Now, the point is, imagine someone saying to, let's say, the average student, say, look, before you submit the essay, I want to see the perfect prompt that you would submit to an LLM so that I can see the structure, the thinking, the idea, the hypothesis, how you work. And it's going to take you probably, say, no, 15 lines, 50,
Yeah.
60 lines. Well, that level of clarity is normally not there yet. When people start with a white piece of paper, a pencil, a paper, say, or no, the keyboard says, "Oh, let me put down some words, and somehow the text will emerge." Well, no, it doesn't emerge.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of a sense that we have overemphasized this reliance on the written word, but also for cultural reasons. As I said, there's a holy text, there's the logos, there's the way in
Yeah.
which divinity or God communicates to humanity is through a written word. Now, all that has sort of pushed us in a direction where orality and a more, say, dialogical context were more structured, very logical, mathematical, so way of writing have been put on a side when the sort of holy product became the essay, or if you like, the
Yeah.
letter in the past. Then we're going to see that deeply challenged. Um, in university context, for example, we are now talking much more about talking to students. Wow, amazing. To
Yeah.
understand whether they actually got the point, as opposed to send me an essay on no, the American Revolution.
Yeah.
No, because that would have been written by an AI. I use the AI to assess it. Everybody happy. Nobody knows anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Another way to move forward.
That's so interesting. So I mean, I don't know, maybe this is sort of outside the scope of how you've thought about this, but eh, do you think then we should change some aspect of how we do education? I mean, you're already intimating at maybe we should de-emphasize, which is not to say eliminate by any means, I take it, but de-emphasize the importance of writing in favor of some other things. I mean, are you thinking about, do you think that you have thoughts around maybe what education should look like at the university level or at the elementary school level or high school? I mean, I don't know. Do you have sort of broader thoughts about the direction in which we should take education?
It might sound like an old fart, as they say in Oxford, but I think and very simple. So I'm going to say it. We should talk. We should talk more. Talk. Like have a dialogue, interviews, meet people, talk, examine, and also have that kind of more confrontational, if you like, dialogue where there is an exchange of reasons, and I say so, and you say that, but I don't understand. So can you tell me more what you mean by? So that you can discover so much more by having that sort of real interaction as opposed to
Yeah.
the mass production of essays, which is typical very much late 20th century. We have transformed, especially higher education, but no, even all education at large, it became so wide, so massive that we had to find industrial ways of processing, examinations, assessment, production.
Yeah.
The essay became, no, or the written word became the thing. You know what? I just send me something. I assess that something in and out. You produce the object. I assess the object. Very industrial.
Yeah.
Job done. Now, because of AI these days, that is completely undermined, but I would say in a good way. No, I was privileged, and I say this with no rhetoric, to teach for many, many years in Oxford. But we still have the one-to-one tutorial when the student comes with an essay, but the essay is what you discuss because that is proof that they've done their work. But by having an hour conversation or with that student, one to one, what they put there, they make sense of, or they can actually defend it. They have an idea.
Yeah.
It's their essay, it's their uncle's essay. Now, of course, there's an expensive system, etc. There are a thousand reasons to why we went down the essay and the written word. But if you think of
Yeah.
it, and the last point, we can also leverage AI to have more time, etc., to have a chat about what you think concerning the American Revolution. Uh,
Yeah.
that's my sort of more ideal way of moving forward. As you said, do not put away the essay. It's complementary,
Yeah. Yeah.
but try to understand whether the person in front of you and vice versa, there's an exchange of ideas. And the ideas, this last point, I mean, we have pushed for the essay. The essay that is written by so anonymously that I cannot recognize whether it's John, Mary, Laura, or Peter. The dialogue is individual. So, kind of Socrates, Plato kind of style, a little bit more of that. Not just that, because at some point you need to
Yeah.
fix your ideas. But no, Russell style, think and think and think, and then maybe put it down with ink. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And you could actually imagine students, like, as a test, you record a conversation. They have to record a conversation they had, and you can get an LLM to talk through that, like, to analyze that conversation. I mean, I was starting to think about. So, one of the things that I've heard the kind of suggestion before of, oh, we should give more oral exams, and I thought that works at a place where you are, at a place like Yale, where the class sizes are relatively small, and you're teaching one, maybe two courses per semester, but and you have perhaps teaching assistants who can do a lot of that work. But there's lots of teachers out there who They work with hundreds of students, right? It's lecture halls, and they can't do oral exams of hundreds of students. So it struck me as a kind of a solution for the already privileged who already have that.
Tell you a story about this because
Yeah.
the Anglo-Saxon world is based on the essay, but it was a shock for me when I came from Royal University that where I did all my 4 years philosophy degree by always having oral examinations. And when I was an undergraduate at Rome was the largest university in the world in terms of people enrolled, 200,000, 200,000 students.
That's a lot. That's a lot of
That's a big
students.
town. And
That's a city.
they will all examine orally. Now, of course, it becomes hell for the professors because
Yeah.
you spend an enormous amount of time doing that. And then, as you said, you need assistance. And so the system, especially the public system, in Europe is very much more. This essay crisis is very much in the Anglophonic, Anglo-Saxon, English-speaking world because
Yeah.
it's in continental Europe, there is still an enormous amount of time spent in oral discussion and oral examinations. Now, of course, these are state-run universities. It's a different system completely. But if you think of it, is in a way is the privileged university that can concentrate on the essay. In the massive university, you just talk to people, 15 minutes, next, you don't understand it. Next.
Yeah.
Because that's the way it is. So that's the way I did my whole philosophy undergraduate degree. And
Yeah.
we were thousands of people. So there's
That's so
you
interesting.
can leave, so give and take, and so there's a where there's a will, there's a way, as they say. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I would.
No, that's interesting. And the other thing is that with when it's a professor, so I used to do this actually. I would get essays, and then I would send them an audio file of me speaking about what they had written, because I thought what I can type out in say 7-10 minutes or whatever it is way less information that I can convey just talking. And so I would just hit record, blah, 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 blah. I see the point that you're making. I'm not sure that you understand it because of this, that, and the other thing. So I could convey way more in the same amount of time. And then I just send them an MP3 player. It's not a player, an MP3 file. So yeah, there's that. That's really interesting. You're right that you can give feedback often faster than you can give written feedback.
And more clearly because especially if you're talking to someone, you see whether they're getting it or not. Written word.
Yes. Yeah.
It's there. I mean, you get a word. I didn't understand this comment. No, the number of times I was on the other side, I got scribble on a side of my essay back in England.
Yeah.
So what's the British?
What the hell does that say? Yeah.
Was that wrong or was that grong or prong or?
Yeah.
So,
I had a friend in grad school who he got a comment back on his seminar paper. This was getting a PhD in philosophy from a very esteemed professor. I could just say Jonathan Dancy. So you probably know Jonathan Dancy. He was my PhD advisor, and he taught this course, and he wrote in the margins of one of my friend's papers, like so many other students, you don't seem to understand the difference between diffuse and diffuse. Diffuse and diffuse, like DEF versus DIF. And for 3 months, whatever the summer was, my friend was like, I don't know what he means. What does that mean? Trying to rack his brains, like what the philosophical significance is between, and all he meant was it's a spelling error. Yeah. But if he had just talked to him and been like, no, this is a misspelling.
It's always a vague
Yeah.
point. It's like, no, you just got the wrong letter. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
so sometimes we should be a little bit more in touch with each other. And as I said, it can be faster. So it can be even time saving and resources saving.
Yeah. Let me pivot a little bit. Before, when we were talking about this conversation, we talked a little bit about authorship of thoughts.
Yeah.
And we both expressed some kind of concern around people not owning, I said their thoughts or their beliefs in a certain way. I was sort of concerned that, you come to conclusions as the result of what the LLM said, or the LLM tells you something and you're like, yeah, okay, that sounds right, I'll do that. And there's a sense in which you don't own the thought in the same way, because something about the way that you sort of blindly or semi-blindly adopted the thing, it's sort of like you have a thought, but it's not yours in some sense. I don't exactly know what to do with that. And you said something similar about you don't really own the written work because you haven't, you used the Lockean metaphor of mixing your labor with the land.
Exactly.
I don't know. So could you say a little bit more about that and your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
there's certainly a sense in which, if you have written on the keyboard, or with a pen,
Yeah.
those words, they are yours because you produce them, with sweat and some fatigue, so to speak. So the Lockean metaphor, like your ownership is because you're mixing your effort and work with the thing that is in front of you.
Yeah.
Obviously, talking about land and of course agriculture, but it is not. I think of something similar here. So in that sense, ownership is a matter of ownership. I think we're looking at ownership as a change from uh, ownership of the thing done to responsibility for the thing released. So if I send you some, like suppose I submit a paper for publication, the New York Times, an op-ed to the New York Times, something, no, maybe I got lucky and someone likes it, or just, and it's entirely written, but under my control by a piece of AI. But I take responsibility. I mean, it's my name on it. So
Sure.
I'm much more like the architect who signs the blueprint for the building. He's not going
Yeah.
to put it together. He's not going to go in with the pipes and the bricks and but the
Sure.
responsibility for the kitchen being there as opposed to elsewhere, and if he screws up the size of the bathroom, well, I'm not going to take it on the poor worker who just put things where they're supposed to. I'm gonna speak to the architect and say, look, this was supposed to be a hospital. It looks like a school. Like, what's wrong? You
Yeah.
made a
Yeah. Yeah.
mistake. So I think we're moving from authorship as ownership to authorship as responsibility. It's a different story. And I understand that for some people it's a little bit strange, but especially if you have written so much like academics do throughout your life, you know that at some point, for example, you had cut and paste, you have been using grammar checking, you have been checking your typos with Word anyway. So at some point, you've been trying to use a particular style. You want to sound like, say, Bertrand Russell,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
so on. So you don't use split infinitives because you want to sound British and etc. So all of a sudden, you just realize, you know what, this is a mechanism that of production that if I could control it, as opposed to be sort of wasting my time putting all the bricks together, if I had, say, robots to put the bricks and I'm just the architect, well, I take responsibility. The design, the ideas, the order in which things happen, the approval. I change something. I don't like the way the LLM wrote it, or redo it. The
Yeah.
evidence is not right. I prefer this. All this is hugely responsibility on my side, but I haven't
Yeah.
done the hard work with the ink, if you like. So for some
Yeah. Yeah.
people, they still think, no, if you don't have that ink moment, well then you're not there. Let me give you a small example. I mean, for the philosophers. So
Yeah.
Nietzsche was obsessed with typewriters. Okay, he had his own special typewriter. It's quite unique. It's a very well-known story among the people who work on Nietzsche. It's a strange typewriter. So it looks like a globe. So hey, that's Nietzsche. Heidegger, and we're talking about no vaguely the same German tradition, right? He hated typewriters, and he said the only way of writing is by hand. Now,
Yeah.
who is right? I mean, the Nietzsche, the Heidegger, I say it's a pointless sort of debate.
Yeah. 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 Sure.
It's responsibility for what you are putting out there. And if I take the responsibility and I say mine as in I did it, I'm accountable for it. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
then I think that's the kind of ownership we're looking into for the future.
I mean, I think what you're saying is something like authors will increasingly take on sort of like the role that an artist takes on who runs a studio, where the artist isn't really literally producing the work. They're not literally. Now, I was at a photographer studio the other day, and his assistant is the person who sets up the shot, or like he follows the instructions of the artist, the person who owns the studio, but he's doing the physical. And the example that I'm thinking of, it's these photographs of very, very tiny insects, but they take pictures of these things and they're blown up to the size of, like, I don't know, 10 feet high,
A gorilla.
20 feet wide, whatever it is. Yeah, a gorilla. Thank you. Yeah, huge. But all the physical setup of trying to get the insect to, put it right there, stay there. Here's where we put the all that is done by the assistant, but yet the artist is the one who sort of directs it all, and it's the artist's name that's on the thing. And I remember hearing, I was confused when I first heard about this. I think it was Andy Warhol maybe who had a bunch of production assistants, and I thought, what do you mean Andy Warhol didn't do the he didn't do that. He didn't physically make the thing, and no, he didn't. No, he was the sort of creative director. He directed all of them, and it took me a second or more to think. Oh, I guess in order to be the artist who created the work, you didn't have to literally touch it. You could have someone else do the touching, but you're the artist. And I feel like you're saying the same thing about writing now.
The idea, and it's almost like we are removing the materiality of the art,
Yeah.
and we emphasizing more the idea, the shape, the intuition, the novelty, the angle you take, the perspective. So in a way, if that means that AI is writing, we've been there.
Yeah.
We've been there before. Now, architecture. We remember the architect. No, not all the people with all those columns there. Um,
Yes. Yes.
you
Yes.
remember
Yep.
the director of the movie, not the cameraman, actually
Right. Right.
the
Right.
work there, so, or the person who care of the cables and so on. When
Yeah.
it comes to photography, I think we take for granted, and one day I think we will reason in the same way, that that is my photography. So no, 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 look, no, no, it's the camera took the photo. What do you mean? I mean, it was that angle,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that perspective, that filter. No, I threw away five. I kept that one, and that's the one I sent the user. It's my photo. Say, okay, what about text? Why not doing the same thing? No, it's my text. I wrote six of these with the LM. I threw five away. This one, I took it from this angle. I decided this title. No, this was not that paragraph. It's my construction.
Yeah.
So it's my text. So no, you didn't write it on a keyboard. It's like saying, no, oh,
Yeah.
you didn't pick up the brush and paint it. So I know it's his photograph. It's a different kind of business. I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
will happen. Text is the last frontier because we have been so hooked up, culturally speaking, because of also the religious background that I told you before.
Yeah.
Obviously, it seems to be like, oh, it's a taboo. I mean, an author is someone who actually produces firsthand the cake. You know what? A great chef doesn't cook that much.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right, that's true.
it's,
Right,
it,
that's good. I like that. I mean, when I think about my own use of LLMs, I'm in the middle of now editing a book, but people ask me did I use it to write it, and I used it for a variety of things, including hey, read this and give me some criticisms. But there were also times where I thought, I know I want a metaphor here or an analogy, and I know the structure of the thing, and I know the kind of way it should go, but I can't think of exactly the right instantiations for the variables in the structure. So I go to an LLM and say, like, give me some options here. I forgot what the example was, and it's really good at that. And I'm the one who first thought about the structure of it. That there was it's appropriate to use an analogy here, or we need a metaphor here. Here's the shape that it should take. It would give me suggestions, and I'd say that doesn't work for this reason. It doesn't work for that reason, and I'd coax it some more until either I got something where I thought, yeah, that's really good, or I'd say that's not it, but now I know what it ought to be, and then I'll do the writing myself. But the point is to what you said earlier. I take responsibility for what's actually there because I played this very active role in trying to figure out what exactly is the metaphor that we're going to use here.
I think that's a beautiful example because that shows who's in control. You are in control of the
Yeah,
machine. You're in control of the LLM. You know what you want, and you don't say yes until you get what you want. Well, that is
yeah,
so. We got these keywords, design of the project, control of the tools that gets you there, and responsibility for the outcome. Now, once you get the design, the responsibility, the control, that is exactly what authorship looks like. Now, the fact that
yeah,
you didn't
yeah,
put
yeah,
all those letters together in that particular order, those sentences, well, that seems to me a much less interesting. No, let alone someone like me writes in a different language. I mean, it's not even my own language. So it's even more artificial. I mean, it's a second language. I learned how to say certain things. Obviously,
yeah,
there's a certain amount of control that you exercise, which is lower than your natural language, first language.
yeah,
So all these things seem to me to pushing in a direction where eventually we also appreciate more the one thing by hand. That's the other counterpart. I mean,
yeah,
come to my place with a cake that you made. I love it more, even if it is not as good as uh, the one that you actually bought from the shop, because you spend time, you put. So I think there's a lot to win in all this. But let me put the nasty bit perspective. There's also a lot of rubbish that will come out of this because people will, what they
Right.
will do, just turn the handle and produce. Oh, this is a new sort of James Joyce or a new Hemingway. No, it isn't. It's just you not.
It's just crap. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Any extra
Let,
show.
so let me sort of raise two kinds of concerns or thoughts that people might have that I sort of have. I could see one coming from one angle, something like, yeah, but it's always going to be kind of middling content, or you're not going to get, to your point, you're not going to get George, you're not going to get Nabokov out of an LLM unless you ask it, yeah, hey, quote Nabokov. And so one concern, I don't think it's that serious, but I'll just see what you have to say about it. How are you going to create the next Nabokov
Yeah.
if we sort of not give up on writing, but really deprioritize it in the way that you're articulating? Are we going to lose something of real value if we don't teach writing, we don't encourage writing? We're going to lose great literature, that sort of thing. So that's one kind of thought. Well, let me stop there. I have other things, but what's your thoughts about that?
That is a beautiful point to explore, because then writing becomes no longer, if you like, no, production of something to be assessed, but becomes a bit of an art. It's like someone's like, why would you not learn how to play music if you can
I
actually
was thinking exactly the same thing. Yeah, I was thinking like the violin.
at
Yeah,
the
yeah,
best
yeah, yeah,
possible level? Well, because I enjoy doing that. I don't
yeah, yeah,
but I'm enjoying it. Why do you learn how to paint when you can have the best paintings reproduced in your house? You can have Raphael, you can have Van Gogh, you can have all that look, for a few dollars. Well, because I love to do that, and I don't think
yeah,
there is a reason behind what I'm doing, which in terms of assessment or evaluation, it's but it's the same reason why we cook. I mean, sometimes it's cheaper, but also because we want to have that particular recipes. So
yeah.
you change completely the framework within which writing happens. So writing happens more like as something that we want to do, if we want to do it, and in context. So I rather write, say, a note because you maybe to a friend who maybe lost someone. I don't have the guts to write that with an L. It has to come from me, even in the
Yeah,
words and the wrong syntax. But it has to be something that is closer to what I would do with my hands, like
yeah,
the object. Some of the times, there's no need. I mean, so I think that what we're looking at here is not getting confused about the essay writing. Say, it's how we generate the next Nabokov because we won't. But freeing people from the need to write those essays and say, we can teach you how to write because that is something beautiful that you want to have among your skills, like playing the flute or whatever, or dancing.
yeah,
Well, that's a different story, and I'm all in favor of
yeah,
that. But it's a different story from saying, oh, the only way of being an author is writing on a keyboard yourself. No, I don't think so. It's You remember what we said before, the design and the control and the responsibility come with
yeah,
knowing what can or cannot be done. I mean, an architect
yeah,
knows exactly
yeah.
the material they're using. They don't start
So
pretending that you can write a skyscrapers in wood or so.
yeah.
I think that there's something to be said there.
So let me come at it from a slightly different angle now. And again, I suspect I know what you're going to say. By the way, I think the comparison with learning a musical instrument is a great comparison. I think that feels apt, right? I mean, not everyone's a writer. Not everyone's a violinist. Not everyone's a pianist. Writing in an artistic or particularly compelling or whatever it is way. It's a skill set. 99% of people can't do it. 99% of people can't play the violin, and that's all fine. We don't need a bunch of Nabokovs running around. A handful will do. The other thing that I wanted to get your thoughts on are something like I guess the question is, can people get good enough at writing such that they can actually interact with an LLM in the right sort of way? And maybe this speaks back to your, voice is fine or whatever. But I guess I'm sort of thinking of, The architect, I imagine, to become a great architect, understands probably something about the fine grained stuff that he or she doesn't touch anymore. I imagine that the director knows something about the role and how the camera, we talked about the cameraman earlier, like how the cameraman works, or how the audio, how the whatever, how the I don't know, whatever, what the hell is involved? They know something about acting, right? Even though they're not actors, they're directors. They know something about lots of. Anyway, this is a sort of rambly way of saying that the expert, or that our sort of artistic director who takes responsibility for the output, still knows a bunch about the stuff that they're interacting with. I think they're not sort of ignoramuses of it. I wonder if, or here's the sort of pushback, concern, whatever. If we don't take writing seriously as a kind of discipline that we teach everyone, then you won't get people to know how to interact with an AI in the right kind of way, such that it creates the written outputs that you want. So yes, fine, you're not creating Nabokov, but you still need to create some good material. Because as you said, reading is still everywhere, right? We're still reading the pamphlets at museums. We're still reading books. We're still reading blah, 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 blah. Textbooks. So yeah, are you worried at all that if people don't get taught how to write well, they can't creatively direct the LLM in the right sort of way?
It's like a precondition. You can be a good director only if you have been acting, shall we say, or you can be a good producer of music if you actually know how to play the piano or an instrument. So there's a bit of an analogy here that I think
Yeah.
we should explore, and
Yeah.
it is reasonable to say that we're not without all that practice or without that training and education. Uh, what's going to happen when you have to design a text if you have never written a text? And that is the concern for the new generations coming up. Of course, we're still dealing with students at the moment who have had some exposure to essay writing and so on, literally these days. But fast forward another 3 or 4 years, and the students we will get as undergraduates, for example, they would probably not have done that much writing themselves. Uh, so what we're talking about here now is no longer authorship, but is more how do we educate people to control and design and know how to use this machinery? Absolutely. And I think that once again, writing is a fantastic technology. No, we haven't seen the end of it at all. It's
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like, if you like, allow me a very stretch analogy here. At some point when I was a kid, it was very popular to have bicycles. When I was 5, 6, 7 years old. But when I was a teenager, bicycle disappeared. Bicycle was not a thing. You wouldn't go by bicycle around. Then,
Sorry. I'm sorry. I missed it. What was another thing?
so in general, no, when I was a very young kid, 5, 6, 7 years old, it was normal to get a bicycle as a present.
Oh, got it.
So you would go around.
Yeah.
Then when I was a teenager, or even late in my early 20s, bicycles were not cool. It was not a thing. No, yeah,
Yeah.
it was for old people or children.
Yeah.
Then fast forward a few more years, and everybody's like, bicycle is a great thing.
Yeah.
Europe is full of bicycles, and I live in Oxford where bicycles are everywhere, and etc. etc. So you start thinking, you know what? It's a little bit like that. It's like there is a bit of a stretch analogy, but in a way, there are some skills that they're never going to go away. Now, I do not imagine a world without bicycles. So, even in 1,000 years, it's a great technology. It's like
Yeah.
spoons. No, this is spoons are a great technology. We invented, we got them, we never improved them. That's it. Spoon are
Yeah.
spoons. So I think writing is right, and I don't think we will
Yeah.
lose it. But teaching how to write, for example, and what for, and what it means to be an author, that will probably transform quite radically. So I'm some ability, for example, in writing a text will have to be taught, but not because you will be assessed all throughout your life in terms of an output, written output with your hands, but because, for
Yeah.
example, you need to know the skills, the grammar, the syntax, all the sort of tricks, rhetorical of teaching or maneuvering an LLM to do what you want. So you were giving the example before. You can do all the editing because you have had so much experience that you know exactly what you're looking for or what's going to click or not. Now,
Yeah.
gaining that experience and expertise will involve writing, but it will not be, oh, you need to write an essay on this and
Yeah.
that in order to pass the exam. Um, Much less so, I think.
Yeah. Super interesting. So, I mean, it sounds like what someone needs to write. Maybe it's you. It's something like I feel like there's a genealogical critique of the essay
I think so.
somewhere, right?
I think that
Like,
is one.
here's where it came from. Here's the values that were upheld in
Yeah.
the origin of
The history
why we
is
valorize the essay, and those conditions don't apply anymore, and blah blah blah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I wrote something recently, which is not as interesting as the project that you are suggesting, because I needed an expression here to describe this writing that is not writing, but is writing through an LLM. So I chose the expression distant writing because in literature there is such thing as distant reading. And
Distant.
so I kind of copy that. Distant reading is when you use a lot of databases and software and so on in order to, for example, analyze a whole corpus, all Shakespeare, or all the writings ever done by Hemingway to see how he, say, uses adverbs. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of that's what I mean by distant reading. And I thought, oh, now I think there's a counterpart here in terms of distant writing. You're still writing, but with a filter mediated by some computer and LLM or types of software, and that has had some success. So I don't know if I'll stop here and you can cut the next bit. Um, but there's this book that I wrote on using only LLMs, which now actually been approved accepted for publication by Columbia University Press. So I'm quite happy because
Amazing.
well, it was rejected by everybody. Trust me, we can say this. It was rejected by almost any publisher I know of because it's a book made of very short stories, about 1,500 words each, from from Jane Austen to Virginia Woolf,
Yeah.
where I pick up one small character with a name and surname, and that's all we know in a classic, who meets as another tiny minor character in another classic, who then so one meets two,
Ah.
two meets three, three meets four, etc. From two for those hundreds of centuries, so hundreds of years of classics in British literature. And all I
Yeah.
wanted to do was to, in a way, show that you could do it with an LLM. So it's 100% synthetic. I haven't changed a word. But I, every time I wanted to change a sentence or a phrase or a description, I asked the LLM to redo it. It took, for every story, it took about 40 hours of processing per story.
Wow.
That is, if you tell me, could you have done it faster yourself? Oh, yeah, by all means. It's just that
Yeah.
the variables, for example, in that case,
Yeah.
there's so many. These have to be real characters in real books in real quote unquote novel oriented context
Sure.
circumstances who meet another character historically plausible, financially, economically plausible, in a plausible place, in a plausible time, with a plausible age, with a plausible dialogue, it explodes. So it's only by using a computer and an LLM you can actually keep control of this narrative. And so we have these 20 stories. Just to give you an example, so without ruining it, there's
Yeah.
the butler of Dr. Jekyll who meets the woman who lends the flat to Sherlock Holmes.
Okay. Yeah.
We got these two characters, and they're there, they're real characters, and they meet
Yeah.
and they talk about their own. No, he talks about Dr. Jekyll was in a funny way,
Sure.
and she talks about this guy who's probably going to rent her place. The current doctor is not so good, but the next one is a certain kind of the guy called Sherlock Holmes seems to be more reliable, etc. So it's fun,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and you can do
Yeah.
this. You can do this with an LLM.
Yeah. So really, the upshot there is something like there's a kind of written material that we can generate that we couldn't really generate, or not. Not. It would be phenomenally difficult to generate without the use of an LLM.
Exactly. There are opportunities that are beyond the ability to write. And that's, for example, a certain way of storytelling or putting together some content that would be very, very hard. So imagine, for example, if we start writing science fiction and getting that through an LLM in terms of how plausible is it. There's a lot of crap on science fiction just because it just doesn't make any sense. People
Sure.
contradict
Yeah.
each other. No, no, the chapter number 8 says something that doesn't go with chapter 1. So
Yeah.
that is also writing with an LLM. It's also
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so. I don't want to sound too optimistic, but I think it's a great opportunity.
Well, this is great. This has been really great. I mean, I didn't expect, Yale professor to say, "Yeah, get over the essay," but but this has been great. Super eye opening, and I'm usually very gullible the first time I hear it argued. I'm like, yeah, that seems indomitable. Then I get a second to think like, oh wait, what am I talking about? But no, I think I'm persuaded. This sounds good.
Okay,
I'm gonna go home and tell my kids stop writing essays.
Absolutely, stop the essays.
Yeah. Well, Luciano, thanks so much for doing this. This has been really great.
Thank you. Fantastic dialogue, as we should have more often.
More dialogue. That's right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I want to thank a few people who make this all possible. Delano Alexander, he's my producer. He does such an amazing job on everything that he touches. Garrett Lang is the sound engineer. That's honestly, he's too good for me. Athmia Jairam has joined us recently. He's helping us find the best guests to bring onto this podcast. And Ashley Wassilenko helps us organize all this, get people on the schedule, get people's bios, headshots, and really keeps the train on the track. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate all the hard work you do.